Kai Robinson, who is doubling back from his 10,000 meter win on Wednesday night, where the conditions were similar.
And not just Kai Robinson, but also Charles Hicks back from that 10K 1-2 finish for the Stanford Cardinal on Wednesday night. That was the first 1-2 finish for teammates since Edward Cheserek, King Ches, and Eric Jenkins back in 2015. But that's something that Stanford has done a number of times, led 1-2 finishes in the 10,000 meters, and this is a stacked field. You not only have a number of guys who are doubling back from the 10K, you have a few who are coming in fresh, like Brian Fay of Washington, who has the collegiate outdoor lead, dipping just below 13:22 back in April. However, Dylan Jacobs has the overall collegiate lead going all the way back to the indoor season, in which he dropped an impressive 13:11:01 on the indoor track. So he's coming back from that 10,000 meters as well.
5 athletes who have doubled back from the 10. Dylan Jacobs had a very disappointing performance in the 10. He was the defending champion and finished out of the points.
And actually, Dwight, I'm not seeing, now that we're kind of looking at the whole field, not seeing Dylan Jacobs. Nope. Yassine Abdallah is in the all orange, though, for the Tennessee Volunteers. And right up front, that is Kai Robinson.
Let's take a look at the team standings with this event and the 4x4 still remaining. Arkansas with a 5-point lead, and amazingly, I was just talking to Lara, I did not see an Arkansas athlete that was entered in this race. I don't know when the last time that was. Probably before John McDonald was coaching at Arkansas did they not have a finalist in the 5,000 meters on the men's side. So they were not going to get points there. Neither will Florida, so it's all coming down to the 4x400 relay, where Florida is the collegiate record holder.
Larry, you talked about Brian Fay. He's a 352 miler. What type of race favors him in this final?
Well, Brian Fay is capable of running with just about anyone and winning in multiple different ways, but he has a ferocious finishing kick, and we saw that at the Pac-12 championships, in which he won both the 5,000 and the 10,000. Indoors, he was part of that incredible showing in the mile for Washington, and what they did at the at the conference championships is head coach Andy Powell said there was a huge emphasis on trying to help the team win a title, and Brian Fay was willing to do whatever it took, and it came down to that 5,000 meter performance and an incredible closing kick for him. That was the first time the Washington men have won a conference outdoor title.
Antonio Lopez Segura now in the lead in the first K, just under 3 minutes, 2:56. You could see them bunching up. Look at a lot of the athletes out into lane 2 and maybe even lane 3 on the curve. So okay about running extra distance just to stay out of trouble. They've really bunched up a bit in this last lap, and that is a recipe for disaster when you've got 23 athletes on the track in a very small space.
You're seeing Carter Solomon of Notre Dame, that all-white kit. Now here comes Brian Fay with a little burst far over into the outside of lane 2 to situate himself right there among the lead pack. Currently on a 14:39 pace to this point in the race.
Larry, can you talk to the fans at home about the confidence that Stanford's Kai Robinson has winning the 10K, now coming down to the 5,000? Is that really something that can propel him forward in this final? Well,
not just Kai Robinson, but also Charles Hicks. In fact, because of the fact they went 1 and 2, and I talked to a few of the other coaches with the athletes in this field, and they said that sometimes having a showing like that, although your legs are tired, you just have such a momentum boost and a confidence boost, and then the pressure is off because all the expectation isn't on one event. So you're able to kind of run loose, run fast, run free. They're also incredibly familiar with the rest of the guys in this field, being that you have a lot of your top athletes from the Pac-12 conference meet going head-to-head, and then some of those guys who were also in the 10,000 meter field, like Casey Klinger of BYU, who took 3rd.
All right, we're going to step aside with about 8.5 laps remaining with Antonio Lopez Segura and Matt Strangio up front. We'll bet more of this 5,000 when we return to Austin. back to the 5,000 meters with just less than 5 laps remaining. And it's Antonio Lopez Segura up front with Kai Robinson on his right shoulder. That's been the way it's been for about the last 3 laps.
And Dwight, I talked earlier today with J.J. Clark, the Stanford director of track and field, about the performance of Kai Robin and Charles Hicks so far in this championship event. And he said they didn't have the showing that they wanted coming out of the cross-country season. Of course, Charles Hicks was the NCAA cross-country champion. When they got to the indoor championship season, felt like they left a lot on the track. So this has been very gratifying for the program. Gave immense credit to distance coach Ricardo Santos for what we're seeing from these Stanford guys. And look who has now inserted himself into the mix. That is Nico Young, who is the top returner in the field. He finished 3rd in last year's NCAA Outdoor 5,000 meter championships. The Northern Arizona product is now right up front. Dwight, at the beginning of the broadcast, you noted the collegiate record of Abdi Nur. Nico Young was also in that race, just 5 seconds behind his teammate in that race last year. And that time by Nico Young of 13:11.3 still stands as the 3rd best in collegiate history. And Nico Young is fresh in the 5,000.
And he was not amused by the pace. So he said, watch this. And he has really picked up the pace. And look at the way that the pack is stringing out as a result of it.
And at the conference meet, he really flexed his versatility, running the 1,500 and the 5,000. So he has that nice, refined finishing kick that he's going to need over this last mile. That's Yassin Abdallah from the University of Tennessee, now jumping up, getting in there to push the pace as well. At the SEC Championships, Yassin Abdallah was 2nd in the 10,000 and helped pace Dylan Jacobs, his teammate, to his 5,000 meter run.
Young just threw down a 61-second lap, and these are the only people who were able to slightly survive. Young from NAU up there in Flagstaff. Those guys, the guys in Tucson, Provo, any place that has altitude where they live and train are at a huge advantage at sea level. So the race is on now. He made his move. He made his move. Sorry, Robert. He made his move, and now he's got to live with it.
Oh, no problem, Dwight. You talk whenever you want. You're the legend. All right. So, Larry, I was going to ask you, when a guy makes a move like Nico Young did, how hard is it on the rest of the pack to cover that move and still stay within themselves to run their own race?
When you have a couple of races or a race already under your legs, it is a little bit more difficult, but you've got to be able to respond. You do have some time. If you don't cover the move, you've got to immediately, as soon as you can, start to work your way back in. And you got to hope that a couple of people help pull you along, like what we have just seen. Jackson Sharp of Wisconsin doing a fantastic job of that right now at this point in the race.
Only 8 in that front pack, and Nico Young just threw down a 2:05 800 meters near the back end of this race, and these are the only ones that were able to figure out how to stay with it. A lot of smart athletes did it very methodically. They didn't try to close the gap all at once. But now it's on. It's a little more than a lap, less than a lap and a half remaining, and Nico Young is right there being marked very, very closely by Sharp of Wisconsin.
Sharp, the Big Ten outdoor 1,500 meter champ, to complement an indoor sweep of the 5,000 and the 3,000. And here comes Kai Robinson. We saw him plot his move perfectly in the 10,000 meters, and he has rolled the dice with 400 meters to go.
Bell lap, and it is Kai Robinson from Australia representing Stanford. 3:10 for the last 3 laps. And look at that gap that's developed. He did the same thing in the 10,000 meters, and the only person that could go with him was his teammate, Charles Hicks. I don't see anybody closing that gap at this point with a little more than 200 meters remaining. Nico Young paying the price, slips back to 6th, but he made the race for Kai Robinson and the others that will finish behind him.
In February, Kai Young was 23rd at the World Cross Country Championships, the top Australian, the second collegiate. It was a 10K course, hot, humid, windy conditions in Australia, not unlike what we have here in Austin. And Kai Robinson is thriving driving to the tune of a double victory to complement the 10, the 5,000-meter champion.
Almost a carbon copy of what he did on Wednesday. 55.6 for his last 400. And the last to sweep both distances, King Ches from Oregon in 2016 at home in Eugene.
We talked about it earlier, Robert, about how you get that confidence, you get that boost of momentum, and that certainly paid off well for Kai Robinson, running so confidently, so loose and relaxed. A dual champion for Stanford.